Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. Today, I've got with me Chris Kane. Through the power of the internet. Now, Chris actually is pretty much my neighbor, but we're actually using the power of the internet to talk to each other. Chris, tell people where they can get hold of you.
Morning, Tim. Lovely to be with you, neighbor. A number of places. Where'smyoffice.com is the easiest and simplest, or Chris Kane 55 on Twitter.
And I got a copy of your book.
Well, I'll have to pop around for coffee soon and sign it for you with my pleasure.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed it. It's a really good read. And the reason why I really enjoyed it, Chris, was because you have a different background to a lot of the other people that are kind of working in the future of work and space, because your background is actually one of offices and property and running those, and you were part of a massive big project at a media company in the UK. But you explain it because you have a very different background to a lot of the other people who have come from a human resources background.
Yeah, well, I think, I'll start with quoting Leonardo da Vinci. One of his most striking quotes is that everything connects to everything else. And, if you're a business leader, you're there acting as sort of the leader of an orchestra and trying to get your organization to play to the same tune. And you have HR, you have technology, you have mainstream sales, you have real estate facilities. You have a very sort of motley crew. And, as we look at the future of work, it has so many components, but it's almost a paradox that the most obvious bit of the component is these things we called office buildings in particular. And it is a paradox because what really is the essence of the future of work going forward, and now it's even more relevant, is active leadership and understanding people and place rather than place and people. I'm a retired, lapsed, failed chartered surveyor, and I recognized very early on in my career.
I'm very modest at that as well.
Well, I suppose I started life in a very small village in Ireland of less than 100 people. I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would come to London, be your neighbor, work for the Walt Disney Company, and then have the privilege of working with the British Broadcasting Corporation. For those of us here in Britain, we take the BBC, in a variety of ways, but looking the way broadcasting is going right around the world, it is a true national treasure. And I'm biased. I was in that organization. I've seen it warts and all. But the BBC, for example, had to face up to huge challenge and called for very demanding decisions on the part of its leadership at that time as it moved from analog to digital. And most organizations today are still struggling with this, albeit that we're in the third decade of what will be called the digital century. And all of this technology was already driving lots and lots of changes in a variety of ways. And what's happened with the pandemic in the context of office working in particular, it's thrown rocket fuel on it. So there are many leaders out there now who are facing huge dilemmas. What do I do? Who can I get advice from? 6 Ideas, we try and help people figure out fresh perspectives, because all the playbooks and precedents and toolkits that existed a year ago, they're irrelevant. And you see now leaders trying to figure things out, when to go back to the office, how to figure things out. So what I've been doing, I suppose, is just, as you asked for my background, is that having worked with Walt Disney and understood and learned about the power of brand and how you link that to real estate, how you link placemaking to real estate from a business point of view, and how you can use your real estate not as an expense line item, but as a value creator. In the book, I talk about how leaders can figure out the link between a productive workforce and a productive workplace. And, I suppose as the look at the Irish, I never thought in my wildest dreams that this book would be so timely And a lot of people, because people need to understand context, and I mean, when you're going to try and make decisions, to be forewarned is to be forearmed. And the real estate industry in particular is not customer centric. It never really had to care about its tenants. It's still operating a medieval leasing system, for God's sake. How does that help a modern day business leader who's got speed to market concerns, staff safety concerns, and survival and cash conservation? And yet you get this crowd talking about, let's pay me the rent 3 months in advance, by the way. So it's a very interesting topic at the moment, for sure.
So, I have to declare an interest, which is that the BBC are very kindly paying my father's pension. So long
would upset them.
Long let them remain, because it pays his nursing fees. So that's fantastic. So here we are. We're talking on the 13th of May, 2021. The UK government is saying we're all going to go back to the office on the 21st of June. And my question to you, what's the point of an office?
That's a really good point, because a lot of us have thought of an office as a factory, as a place where everybody comes Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And that's the challenge for leadership at the moment. And it's not just a HR issue or a technology issue or indeed a real estate facilities issue, because the workforce and the workplace have all been thrown together and have to be considered in the round for the first time ever. And you've seen various big technology companies, for example, announcing we're going to all be back by June, and recently announcing, well, maybe it might be September or Labor Day in American parlance. And there's you take last week the very well sort of reported the Washingtonian. Its CEO, Kathy Merrill, said, you've all got to get back to the office, and if you don't, we're going to change your contract. What happened? There was a staff revolt, and people didn't do anything for a day. So for the first time ever, everybody has choice. The worker realizes that, why do I need to go to an office just to send emails? Why do I need to commute? And then leaders, and I think leadership is an even bigger set of challenges, because A is, how do I keep my business going? But also, how do I balance risk? And how do I build resilience? Because what nobody is talking about is we're in pandemic times for the foreseeable future. And we have to think very carefully about our duty of care as leaders, but also workers are rethinking their model. And, you see examples all around the world for workers. Well, maybe I want to work remotely completely, and I'll take less. And I think what the media is trying to do is to try and look at all of this as one solution, a one-size-fits-all solution. Well, I think as most astute leaders know nowadays, that's 20th century outdated thinking. And we have to have a very customized and thoughtful sort of strategy. So what will work for one company may not work for another anymore. And that's the challenge. And
so I'm hearing this word, it's all going to be hybrid. And then when you say what's hybrid, and nobody knows.
Well, precisely. And once again, we English is our mother tongue, and it behoves us to spend some time to really define this. Hybrid implies something in between two givens, two bookends. And in the argument here, we're saying the office and the work from home. That's only part of the picture. People can work any place, anywhere, anytime, and with anyone, given the arrival of automation. So not only is work being disrupted, are we in the last chapter of Monday to Friday, 9 to 5? That impacts the worker and their employees, the nature of the work contract. All of this stuff is now being thrown. And then these edifices, these office buildings, which were, as I was saying, treated as factories, they're going to have to be redesigned and reconfigured to be the places which support collaboration, whatever. And so the offices, the building themselves are not obsolete, but the system is. And the system is obsolete on two dimensions. One, the way the ways of work, which is a business proposition. But then underpinning all of that is how the buildings are operated, delivered, and provided. That system, the leasing system, the facilities management system, all of that stuff needs a massive overhaul to support the new ways of working. And you can't have one without the other.
You talk a lot about in your book about the difference between the real estate, the building, and the way that that's contracted, and also then the facilities management, so the people that look after the part of the building. And you do have a little bit of a discussion with yourself about how this can actually be brought together, because they're kind of two very different things.
Yeah, and once again, it's technology has made a lot of things possible, so you can basically work together and come out of your silos. I have a view that the specialists who look after the people agenda, HR, the people who look after the place agenda, and the people who support the technology and the process, the way businesses operate, need to collaborate and partner. And maybe some leaders might consider, let's put the whole lot together into a new sort of support function. Who knows? But there's going to be a lot of change. Now, the real estate industry per se, the owners and landlords need to get their act together also to recognize who their customer is. It's not the people who invest in the pensions to fund the buildings. It's actually the businesses who pay the rent. And they've never had to have a proper engagement or relationship. You know, most real estate people don't understand what a customer journey is, for example.
Right. And the I mean, I've heard all kinds of things about the way that if we take the way that the office is going, so Salesforce, for example, there's always been an organization that has said we're going to have big offices with a big name at the top, and they're already, if you take their San Francisco building, they're already subleasing it.
Yeah.
Question. No. So where do you see it going? Because I've also had people saying what we're going to do is so you and I live near a place called Kingston upon Thames, and if you walk down the high street of Kingston upon Thames, it used to be a destination. It used to be the place to go. That was not the West End, where you could get the best. You could get all the top brands, and they've all gone.
And that's just another example of the multifaceted challenge we're facing. And we've all come out of being focused on silos and specializing and all of that, and now all of these problems are facing us together globally for the first time ever. So I can imagine if you're in a leadership role, you have a huge headache. And that's where you need to figure out, how can I secure fresh perspectives and navigate through all of this uncertainty? And I see a period, starting in the summer with lockdown, where the smart organizations who will want to end up being the employer of choice, which is the acid test, will start to experiment with a variety of options, rather than having, there's a lot of noise out in the market at the moment in terms of hybrid this and that and the other. I talk in the book about omni-channel marketing and how you need to apply omni-channel marketing principles to omni-working, because for every organization will be able to do something different. So you experiment and you see what works best for you, your organization, your safety, your risk profile, your resilience strategy, but also a distributed workforce, because I think the smart organizations will have a distributed working strategy, because that gives you the ultimate in terms of resilience.
So when you say distributed, is that about you're going to have an office, you're going to have working from home, you're going to have maybe hubs? So
I think it'll be choice, but it'll be driven by where individual organizations, and everybody's looking to the big companies, particularly the technology companies, for guidance. But if you're an SME in Surrey, for example, that doesn't really help you if you've got 20 people in Guildford or whatever. And they're all saying, I want to work from home. Well, work from home permanently for everybody may not make sense for your organization. So you have to figure out what the blend is. And I talk about omni working as a patchwork quilt for some organizations. Now, there will be many organizations who will see 90% of their people going back to work in an office. Now, whether that office is the old office they used to go to, say in Hammersmith or the City of London, or whether it's a bit there and a bit in Surbiton and a bit somewhere else, that's going to be the interesting question. So workforces will be distributed, and these workplaces will be distributed.
There's been a lot of talk about repurposing some of the retail real estate, which is closed down, and actually turning that into some sort of offices. There's also been a big change. I mean, I'm aware of an office that, to make it COVID compliant, they've got to fork out, £60,000, which is what, $70,000-80,000, just to get people back in the, and that's what 50 people in an office. So there's a lot of changes that have got to take place in terms of getting the office COVID compliant as well.
Yeah, so you're going to see two stages. You're going to see something what I would call loosely the return to the office. But in parallel with that, you will see the smart organizations experimenting and trialing how they optimize their performance in the medium to long term. Because if we think we have a problem with the workforce now, the Washingtonian example is one thing. The negative reaction, say, the Jamie Dimon's announcement a couple of weeks ago is another one. And there's loads and loads of examples coming out of where workers are voting with their feet. They're saying, I want a different deal. And if you don't give it to me, I'm going to go elsewhere. So you have to face up to that reality, but you also have to face up with we can't ignore the fact that automation and AI is coming at an even faster pace. We've got to wake up to climate change. And I've said to the real estate industry that not only has the game changed, but the stadium has changed. And that's my view.
And what about commuting? Because I've not been on a train now. We both live in London, and London has some of the best public transport, to be served as a city. And I've not been on public transport for 12 months, and I'm not sure I want to go back.
Yeah. I think, once again, you're a great example of exercising choice. And you're doing that from a number of factors, I'm sure. It's preference. There's a fear element still. And we ignore the fear element at our peril in that respect. But I think commuting is fundamentally changing. Even with talking to our cousins in America, the long love affair with commuting is on the wane, and it's in the last chapter. So people are realizing that, why do I need to spend every day? And this is where the media has got it wrong, in that they're saying 3 + 2, 2 + 3. We're still trying to use 20th century sort of labels and mindsets to define a technology-enabled 21st century dynamic.
Yes, because if you say everybody with the second name A, B, and C go into the office on Monday, and D, E, and F go on Tuesday, then you're still going back. What's changed? Nothing.
Yeah, and that's the leadership thing, and that's where HR will need to step up and look at this and understand. There's dozens of technology solutions, apps, whatever, which can enable people to work in a much more fluid fashion. And I talk in the book about this massive shift from fixed to fluid. And I don't mean about fixed leases to flexible leases. I mean about everything has moved. And for those of us who've a few decades on the clock in terms of our work experience, this is very, very difficult to say, oh my God, all of the broad parameters we've had for leading a business or running a business, they're all being dismantled right in front of our eyes. And we've no choice, because if we do what a lot of people are doing, is sticking their head in the sand and playing the ostrich, then you become a dodo.
And do you think that what's the key factor into? Is it about health and well-being, or what is it?
I think it's everything, and this is the big challenge. It's multifaceted, it's multi-dimensioned. We need to figure out and understand and accept this enormous explosion of diversity of needs and wants.
And I think that what happens is that I agree with you that people will vote with their feet.
Yeah, and I suppose it's a bit like the power in the economy, a bit like, you know, in consumer sales with the with the arrival of online, where the power shifted to the consumer. The power now has shifted to the worker for the first time ever, maybe.
Yes, but I mean, my partner's 26-year-old. He was part of the, you know, he got laid off at the beginning of the pandemic. So he was recruited, interviewed. His first day, everything was online. I think he's only ever been in the office like once. So he said to the his team leader, he was going to go and work in Barcelona. Yeah. It's only 1 hour difference. And he said the quality of life was better. Yeah. So he packed his bags and off he went.
Yeah. Now, but we have to be very careful that that's just one example, and it depends on the sector he's working in and the nature of the leadership. And it's a great point in terms of everything links together, as I started with this conversation.
Well, it is. It's, you know, he's in sales, so it's all down. It's all based on outcome. So if he doesn't work, he gets no outcome, so he gets fired. But you know, he's diligent and he's very successful at sales. But you know, it's also about making sure that the people that are working for you actually are comfortable and feel safe and are working in the environment they want to.
Yes, and that's the challenge for many leaders and their management here, in that the old ways of supervision, for example, have all been upended. And you know, the smart HR teams around the globe are now providing support and training to managers to re-equip them to cope with the fact that what I call their principle of presenteeism has been thrown out the window.
Chris, thank you so much for talking to me today. Fascinating, and I found it a fascinating book as well, because you approach it from the fact that your background is real estate, rather than human resources, and that was a really. I'm also a BBC baby as well, so
there you go. But it's all about people in place.
I talked to my mum because my father has got dementia, so he would have loved the conversation about it. But I talked to my mum about the BBC part of this, and we had a long conversation about it, because we saw that move from analog to digital.
Yeah.
And it's the BBC faced up to it, and there was a massive impact in terms of buildings. Yeah. You go into a lot of detail, and it's really interesting for me.
Well, thank you for that. But I keep on saying it's not about the building; it's about people in place.
So, Chris, where can people get hold of you?
At Chris Kane 55 on Twitter, or go online, where'smyoffice.com, and it'll direct you to my website.
And your book is available on Amazon, I know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Chris. And I hope to see you down Teddington Way sometime.
Absolutely. Good to see you. All the best. Be safe.
Cheers, Chris. Bye.